Hello, thank you for everyone joining our peak season Unwrapped webinar. We're going to go over the key holiday insights for 2025. But first, we just want to knock out some logistics. This webinar is going to be recorded and shared out afterwards. So if you need it or if you want to reference it, you'll have it afterwards. We'll also be sending out the slide deck. So anything that we go over, you'll have access to afterwards as well. At the bottom of the Zoom, there's going to be a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the time that we're going over the slides or that you had pre-planned for this webinar, feel free to drop them in there and then we'll answer those at the end of the presentation. So moving on here into the agenda, first we're going to go over intros. We'll do that next, and then we'll have the headlines and overview. Then Chandler and I will touch on traffic, and then we'll go into conversion and Q&A, which will be covered by Brianna and Emma. So for me, I'm Shane. I'm an advertising analyst. I've been at Pattern for about 2 years now. So I'll be covering the traffic portion of this webinar, and I'll hand it off to Emma to introduce herself.
Thanks, Shane. I've been with Pattern for about 4.5 years. I'm a director of e-commerce, and I've worked with a number of our partners and just sort of serve in a cross-functional capacity in the brand management department.
Fantastic. I can jump in next. I'm Chandler Price, Director of Advertising here at Pattern. I've been with the company 5.5 years now. My scope and really my team's responsibility is how do we drive traffic and advertising traffic in the most effective way possible.
I'm Brianna. Today actually is my 1-year mark here at Pattern. I'm on the analytics team that supports brands and brand managers. We try and provide all the data, automations, analysis needed to make our brands the most successful as possible.
Thank you. So yeah, just moving on to talk about, why should you listen to us? What is Pattern? What do we do? Pattern is a global marketplace accelerator. So we are the #1 seller on Amazon globally, but we're also a gold trading partner on Tmall, and we sell in 60+ marketplaces. So I have a ton of experience in what we're talking about, and this is what we do. And in addition to that, in terms of data and validation of what we're presenting to you guys, over 38 trillion data points in e-commerce. So in terms of everything that we do, it's all about being a marketplace accelerator on a global scale and being able to understand and dissect insights. So Pattern is the best, in my opinion. I'm a little bit biased, but at doing this. So we'll jump into it now.
So we wanted to start this presentation by stepping back and looking at the big picture of what exactly is at stake during these holiday weekends. For 2024 specifically, we saw $74.4 billion spent globally, and 41 of that being in the United States alone. That represented about 197 million consumers, which you can see also in this graph here is distributed mostly across Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But you'll see that there was growth along the multi-day period as well. Online sales were up 14.6%, with in-store sales being up as well, but only slightly, with 0.7% growth. Slide. And so we wanted to then double click into Pattern and our performance, how we compare against the global market. We actually outperformed globally compared to the market for T5 specifically, and then T12, which I do want to just step back and explain what that acronym just means. That 12-day period between the beginning or the end of Cyber Monday and it's pre-Thanksgiving, but basically when the most growth is seen during promotions. And so we also, this was one of our highest performing Pattern sales days in history, behind Prime Day, the 2 Prime Days in July, both Cyber Monday and Black Friday. The e-commerce equation is something that we're very familiar with here at Pattern. We wanted to explain that we saw in immense growth in all of our KPIs, and specifically in buy box, we were able to beat out competitors keep our listings active with decreased suppression, maintain our inventory and in-stock rates. Traffic we saw grow tremendously. That is expected just due to the holiday itself. And then what was impressive that we're very proud of this year was our ability to maintain growth in conversion rates with that growth in traffic. And then we also saw increases in prices as well. And I'll turn it over to Emma and team, who is going to go into how exactly we can help you as a vendor or a brand capture some of this market.
Thanks, Brianna. So just to break down how you go about planning for the peak season period, I think through 3 critical objectives. So the first starts with just setting an intention, and that really derives from knowing what happened during, peak season 2024. I'd then encourage you to think through what the strategy might be. And for all of us here at Pattern, this is always comprehensive and it's traffic and conversion based. And then I would take a look, at your entire portfolio of channels and really identify the risks that might exist across kind of all aspects of the business. And Shane, we can move forward, but to more specifically sort of talk about setting that intention. There's a partner we worked with, or I worked with this fall, who discovered just how susceptible they are to off-platform suppression during this period. And to break down suppression a little bit, you can lose the buy box to other sellers on platform who have a better offer, be it time to customer, lower price, better seller rating, but you can also lose the buy box, or Amazon will suppress the buy box if it finds a better price off platform. And so for this particular brand, you can see in the lead up, things were pretty strong, buy box was pretty solid. And then as we get into the T5 period, buy box on the top line there really dips, suppression sees a steep increase. And that was really the result of Amazon matching to promotions that it found outside of the platform. And then unfortunately, there really wasn't a very quick recovery, and we lost a lot of traction in the lead out. So in terms of defining what this brand is going to do next year, it really comes back to preserving and protecting the buy box. The second objective I wanted to speak to, Shane, if you want to advance, is just again kind of defining a comprehensive strategy. So detailed here in the visual is our non-promotional traffic trends during the T12 period of 2024. And so it's obviously very clear that there are a lot of people on the platform. They come in as early as that first day of T12. Black Friday is then another really strong day for organic, non-promotional type traffic on the platform. And so as you go about planning for your own strategies in peak season 2025, just keep in mind this idea of like, how am I driving paid traffic, and what am I going to be doing to drive conversion? And the last piece I wanted to dive into, so this third objective that goes into setting your intention. You're good. One more. Is just identifying risks. I think this is a really important assessment that brands need to go through internally before they even get to kind of thinking about traffic and thinking about strategy. Potentially, like, what are those risks that exist internally? I think this is really heavily weighted in the operational risks. So inventory, pipeline and availability, any budgets that need to be allocated now, be it for promotion or for advertising, and then any channel friction that might exist or limitations in your MAP policy that are going to guide how you plan for the period. I'd also encourage everyone to get familiar with the timelines. So as you can see here, Q1 and Q2 is when you're really starting to do all of the preparation. By the time you get to Q3, we start to run up against some of the deadlines for deal submissions. You're running out of time to get inventory into Amazon. And then by the time, October 1st hits, not only do we have, fall prime events that are going to take place, but we hit the shipping cutoff for Amazon, which is the day that they guarantee your inventory actually will arrive and be available for the T5 period. So very important to understand the risks that exist and might inhibit kind of any of the planning or expectations that you have for this period of time. So with that, I think Shane and Chandler are just going to get into the specifics around how we think about driving paid traffic during this period.
Fantastic. And maybe just jumping forward a slide here to kick off very along the same lines of what Emma spoke to. We also want to, set the stage with timelines from an advertising perspective. And so I think a lot of us often think about peak holidays being a peak event like a Prime Day or Black Friday or Cyber Monday. And oftentimes we see people forget about the lead up and the lead out. And so the way that we think about advertising and the way that you're able to drive the most success possible is segmenting your strategy into 3 periods and planning before you even get to those 3 periods. So a couple slides ago, Emma talked about the timelines, some of the risk mitigation, promotions, budget planning should fall into that as well. That also should be, topic of conversation should be around which products are we promoting? Where do we see the most opportunity? Which products do we select that we're going to increase advertising on based on product market fit, traffic increases that we expect to see as well, and then campaign mix. And so campaign mix will be, should I use sponsored product ads, sponsored brand ads, sponsored brand video? What is that optimal mix based on the data that we've seen in past years? And so that helps you lead up into your strategy. And within the lead up bucket, really what you want to be focused on there is capturing qualified traffic to build a pool of new customers who are shopping but not yet purchasing. I think a lot of times if you think about your own shopping behavior before an event, I know I'm guilty of this. I'll start looking for the products that I want to purchase. And a lot of other people do the same. So conversions may not be strong yet, but that traffic is going to be high. We want to drive that qualified traffic, and so we can build a pool of people to serve ads to later. So that's one core function of the lead up. The other thing that you want to do is by advertising well in the lead in, you can build your organic rank as well. And so that ensures that you have more placement, not just from an advertising perspective during the holiday, but also from an organic standpoint. And so focusing on your advertising strategy early helps with the overall real estate that you're going to have during that event. That brings us to the holiday. During the holiday, you want to ensure that, or can we jump back just one slide? Okay. So during the holiday, you want to ensure you have a very strong platform or presence on platform through sponsored ads. You'll retarget those people through DSP ads or sponsored display, depending on what your budget allows, re-engaging those customers, really focus on new to brand growth. That's where we see traffic and holidays really shine, is getting new customers into your brand. And then lead out is going to be a focus on remarketing. And so you're going to drive new customers. If we can close that loop, get people to buy again, and then leverage that strong momentum to ride the wave and continue advertising. And so that's to set the stage. Shane and I will dive through some of the data of how we see to action, as well as what we've seen in reality in 2024 and how that'll lead into our 2025 strategy. So page views and traffic. So page views are the amount of people that are viewing a page on Amazon or other platforms. We saw a shift last year, which was interesting. So traditionally, Amazon and other retailers have a Turkey 5 period, which is between Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. It's that 5-day period. Amazon had a Turkey 12 period. So the prior Thursday, a week prior to Cyber Monday as well. A lot of marketing material behind that. We've also seen trends shift that way from a page view perspective. So even more people are shopping before those events. They're not converting as heavily. They wait for the events on that, but the traffic was up 18% prior to the event and only increased 16% during that event. So when we talk about that lead up strategy, it helps you capture those people, that influx of people that we've seen increasing year over year for the past few years in the lead up, building that strong retargeting pool. And then maybe jumping to the next slide here, the other thing that you're going to want to factor into that traffic equation is the cost for the traffic. So cost per click, how much are you paying to bring in people on your ads once they click an ad? The lead up in Turkey 5 last year, we actually saw a bit of a decrease in cost per click, just furthering cementing the idea that the lead up is incredibly important. It's actually less competitive a lot of times, but dialing in your strategy early, learning what's working, what's not working, will set you up for success even better. After the event, competition normalizes. That can be expected, but very important to plan that into your advertising strategy of cost does go up through the event. So you want to do everything you can in your power to maximize the effectiveness of your advertising strategy. On that note, I'll pass it back to Shane where he'll run through some of the other metrics that we look at.
Cool. Thanks, Chandler. So yeah, as he said, cost does go up during these temple events. So I'm just looking at this from a ROAS perspective, which we don't necessarily recommend to judge these events on ROAS specifically, and even sometimes just your general advertising. And we'll go into why here, but we just kind of wanted to set the stage that yes, you are a little bit less efficient than your averages throughout the year. However, you're having higher CPCs, you're having higher traffic, right? So those are kind of trade-offs that you have when you have these types of things, higher competitiveness. You're going to be paying more to win that traffic. But what other benefits are there to that? To us, one of the biggest things that is important for these events is you're getting a lot of new to brand customers. So when you're being able to pull in new to brand customers, you're increasing the engagement with the brand. And these are some of the best times to do it. If we look at these graphs here, we can see that even during the lead up period, you're gaining higher new to brand rates, and these peak during these periods. So one of the biggest things to take into account when you're thinking about strategy is like, okay, how do you capture the early new to brand? And then how do you capture people for the events themselves? But then you also really want to think about how do you retain these people later on? So if you have a high new to brand rate for the July Prime event, for October Prime, for Turkey 12, for any of the events that occur throughout the year or your own brand seasonality, you want to think about, are we going to remarket it? Are we going to do SNS discounts to try and get people to continue to buy if we have a repurchasable product? Maybe you don't have a repurchasable product and you have like compliments in your catalog that you're going to have to budget for next month to say like, okay, how do we get these new customers to re-engage with the catalog and buy compliments? So like these are key events and key times to be able to think about those types of strategies. And then one of the other most important things when you're thinking about this period is your overall budget allocation. As Chandler said, you have a higher amount of money needed to maintain the advertising through the lead-in period, through the event period, and even through lead out. Then you have to think about re-engagement. So it's really important to understand your product seasonality and how to budget or how to manage that budget allocation throughout the year, and really specifically with these peak events. So moving forward into, the discussion of budget allocation, it also is intraday, and it's important to think about, how are you managing the budget during the day? A lot of advertisers that we see are running out of budget on Prime Day or Black Friday at 8 a.m., 9 a.m. in the morning, and they're kind of dead in the water at that point. So it's really important to think about, okay, if you have an advertising campaign that is going to be for an important product, how are you going to segment that and then balance that with like peak conversion rates? So we see that through these event periods, it's usually around 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time where you're getting the most traffic and you're getting the highest conversion rates. So like that's really important to make sure that you have a plan to capture that, right? To capture the morning rush where people are anxious to buy, people just want to get and purchase products. But then think about, okay, cost per click's decreasing all day, right? So that means that people are running out of budget, it's becoming less competitive. So think about how you're going to segment out your strategy to make sure that you have campaigns running all day and budget for that as well. Because again, it's really important that you're capturing the whole day. So then you can continue to capture new to brand and everything else to build the brand later on. So with that, I'll pass it back to Emma, I believe, to kick off conversion, or Brianna.
Yeah, I'll take it from here.
Thanks.
So yeah, if you wanted to jump onto the next slide. We wanted to just put some data behind some of the topics we've talked about so far as well. Right here, you'll see a graph of our year-on-year sales in, this November, December period. The first dotted line is where Turkey 12 starts, and the second dotted line is where Turkey 5 starts. And you'll see that we saw huge growth in Turkey 5, that was expected. But what you'll notice is in between those two dotted lines, there is an outsized impact to growth, to revenue. And so that's, again, we just want to really hammer that down, that preparing and being, having your promotions and conversion and traffic strategies ready before the actual event itself is actually going to lead you to a lot of success. We also did more analysis about the promotions themselves. We took both promoted and non-promoted products and compared their growth against each other. We actually saw that on average, non-promoted products, or regardless of any promotion, there was a 2 times growth in revenue. And so that is a huge takeaway, that maybe you don't need to spend every single dollar on promotions, and make sure that you are driving that traffic and conversion to your products. We did see that promoted products did see an additional growth of nearly 3 times when they were promoted, but we do want to just caveat that this was the Pattern takes a specific strategy. This only represents about 11% of Pattern's global ASINs, and so we really want to highlight the importance of being strategic about the promotions that you put on, making sure that they are the right products at the right times. And so, yeah, I want to get further double click into promotions on the next slide. How to strategize for those the best you can. We did an analysis on the different types of promotions that you can do, and compared them. You'll see in this graph they're ranked from most successful to most change in revenue, and all the way to least change seen in revenue. Just taking a slash or % off of dollar or % off of your list price is what we saw changed your revenue the most. We actually enrolled in Prime exclusive discounts. You'll see here quite frequently, almost 4 times as much as any other deal type. We do that just because of the Prime only nature of the discount, showing that when you have these on marketplace specific deals, it really prevents there's a word for it, but channel friction. And so making sure that you can keep that price exclusive to Amazon. We saw that standard coupons were the least successful in terms of growth. Mainly we are guessing because of the difficulty in marketing for them, but in general, we saw an average of 25% discount across across the different promotion types, which is kind of high, but we think that that's just due to the nature of some of these deals with the price or the promotion requirements needed for these different types. And so Emma was going to go into a little bit more on how to, if you maybe don't want to spend the money on promotions, or don't have that flexibility, how you can increase conversion.
Thanks, Brianna. So I think just take away from the last slide, like the promotional mechanism is really important, and it's not one size fits all. So just thinking, deliberately about what you're going to use will go a long way in the end for driving sales growth. And if your budgets for the season don't allow for promotions, or you are a non-promotional brand, many of the partners we work with, they come to work with us because they want to sustain MAP, and they are not looking to, drive prices down on platform. Instead, it's all about brand integrity. These are just some of the recommendations and the sort of the timeline we work with our partners on to prepare for the holidays. So I think just to start at the end, Q4 should really be thought of as a hands-off period. So for us, it's like we're standing by, we're watching carefully, we're walking the aisles, we understand the shopping path, but we're not proactively making changes to the storefront or the detail page. For a variety of reasons, but most simply summed up is we feel the risks really outweigh the reward. And an example might be that in the VMS space, there's a number of categories that require specific documentation to sell. And it's not uncommon to inadvertently sort of trigger a warning on one of those listings that then requires you to either work through a seller support case or to go about getting the documentations to then get the listing reinstated. And while that's all a process that we're very comfortable with and we can work through pretty quickly, everything slows down during Q4. And at Amazon, we know we might not get the support we need to make it happen quickly. So we really recommend, not trying to make changes to the detail pages during this time. That said, Q3 is a great time to be shoring up the experience for customers. So if you are planning to revamp image stacks, this is a good time to be getting them up and live. You are, auditing your pages, you need to add video, you're ensuring your variations are intact. This is a great time, again, just to be shoring up the experience and making sure that it's ready to go by October 1st. The other added piece here for Amazon specifically is that you're going to hit fall prime days. And that's, again, a period where you just want to be ready to sell. You don't want to be trying to make a change to your detail pages. And then to step back even further into kind of this period we're in now, it's never too early to be revising the written content on your detail pages, because it does take time for all of those keyword adjustments and SEO enhancements to actually feed into the ranking algorithms on Amazon. Additionally, we do think about always creating a great brand storefront experience. It's so critical to successful advertising, and in general just conveys the legitimacy and authenticity of your brand on the platform. So I think with that, a couple of takeaways from today, which are hopefully pretty clear to everyone. Shane, if you jump to the next slide. We've detailed here that it really starts with up at the top here, I think just to get everyone thinking about peak season 2025, those deadlines are fast approaching, and the opportunity to get organized around inventory is gonna, really wane pretty fast. So be aware of the timeline that you're on in order to launch and be successful during the peak period. And in terms of key takeaways from today, set that intention, think about your strategy, identify the risks. And again, it's all about comprehensive planning. So it's inclusive of a strong traffic strategy as well as a conversion strategy. As Chandler sort of emphasized a number of times, the T12 period is all about the lead up and the peak period and the lead out, and thinking about those days kind of equally and what the plan will be to capture traffic. We do recommend leveraging promotions, but we do recommend being deliberate and specific about what you're doing. And then, as Shane, I think, really clearly emphasized, you need to look beyond the traditional metrics of ROAS and sales for KPIs, because there's a lot of opportunity out there to grow your business long-term during these periods. And that was what we had prepared for today. I don't know if we have any questions that we want to answer for the group on the call.
Yeah, we do. A couple questions came in. Thank you everyone for submitting them. By the way, if anyone has any other questions, there's a Q&A box down at the bottom of your Zoom window. Feel free to drop them in there and we'll get to them right now. So the first question was, I believe on one of the slides, I forget which one it is, but there's a question around, is it an 18 over 16% traffic increase year over year, or 16% more than the typical day?
Yeah, fantastic question. So that was in reference to page views up in the traffic section. So That was based on what we saw year over year, more so speaking to the general shifts that we've seen in traffic between the lead up period versus the actual event itself. That increase in traffic should be far, far greater than an 18% lift. That'll vary by category, but it will be some of the highest traffic times of the year. Specific to, Turkey 5, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but you can also take these learnings and apply them to every other event throughout the year as well. July Prime, traditional, Fall Prime Day as well, Mother's Day, Father's Day, depending on your brand and where you see those lifts.
Awesome, thank you. Second question is, what do you recommend is done for reversions during Q4?
Was that again?
What do you recommend is done for reversions, maybe revisions during Q4?
I think that was Emma's point, is that Q4 really should be a hands-off period. You should mostly be doing revisions in Q1 through 3. Emma, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, just that we really don't recommend making adjustments of any kind during the period. For one, SEO changes that are meant to drive traffic won't really have a lot of time to make an impact. I suppose if you're doing something that's critical because it addresses a customer concern or complaint or return reason, that might be an exception. But generally, we really, really dissuade partners from trying to make material changes during that period. And we just try to have everything set and ready to go by the 1st of October.
Yeah, and I feel that we're pretty much the same on the advertising side. Chandler, you can add in more. I mean, like outside of reactive adjustments that you want to make, you really want to have a lot of the plan for the whole period and post period set in place before Q4 as well.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a follow-up. And this more specifically gets at sort of attributes or nodes switching, which can be really frustrating because it's kind of a constant battle with Amazon. But I would look for a more permanent fix in the period leading up to to Q4. An example I'm dealing with currently is a product that kind of perpetually drops out of a certain child node and into the parent node category. And we're doing that right now. We're really working with Amazon to find the permanent fix for this particular ASIN. But that may be something where it's a little more benign, and if you do have to kind of consistently make those updates during Q4, it's not going to be detrimental to the business. But that's a great call out. There's just inherently things that happen that you do have to address. So as best as you can, try not to touch the detail pages. You'll be in good shape.
Thanks, Emma. All right, let's do a couple more. What % of advertising budgets are reserved in Q4?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. It's one of those hard questions where there's no perfect answer, where I can't say a percentage on the call today. It's going to be heavily dependent on the seasonality of your brand and your products. So our recommendation would be look back at historical years, factor in any out of stocks that may have happened or things that may have lowered the number than what you would see as the run rate, and then plan budget accordingly based on that seasonality. So, kind of just recapping there, look at the full year, plan your budget accordingly. We always recommend an always on approach. And so you should follow the traffic and not just load into Q4, those peak events.
Yeah, one other thing I guess I would add to that is just also considering like how much you're wanting to grow over the year, the cost per click increases or just overall ad increases. When you're looking back at the past year, you don't want to just copy and paste the strategy, like take into account the percentages that you're looking to grow for the current year that you're in.
Yeah, but I think that's a great point. Maybe just to add one thought onto that is always start with your goals. Rather than the traffic strategy first. So your goals should lead the advertising strategy and how much you are spending. So seasonality is the general approach, but I think to Shane's point, if you need to see a 50%, a 60% increase year over year, obviously plan accordingly with that advertising spend based on where you need to be.
Fantastic. That's it. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you, guys. Yeah, feel free to wrap up.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Julia.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for attending. Have a good day.